Gen Z is broken and nobody cares. It truly is over out here for Gen Z and the younger generations. The economy is horrible and inflation is out of control. Cost of living is increasing at an unprecedented rate. The job market is in shambles. Early life exposure to social media is just frying kids' brains before they even have a chance to stop it. Inequality has never been more stratified, both financially speaking and inequality in terms of relationships and just overall life satisfaction. We are truly living in the age of the haves and the have nots, and it's only going to keep getting worse. And the craziest thing about it is, nobody cares. I'm a millennial, and I used to think that my generation had it bad, but now that Gen Z has gotten into adulthood and the younger generation is old enough to judge, I can see that a lot of the problems that millennials had are actually just like 10 times worse for Gen Z. Us millennials were born into a booming economy. The 80s and 90s were like the golden age. I remember my dad telling me once that he bought my childhood home for like $60,000 or something like that in the late 80s. And that house now is worth almost $300,000. And this is in a really low cost of living area, so that's not even a huge increase compared to most of the country. But yeah, cost of living, social media, cost of education, and just the whole global state of affairs. Gen Z truly is the broken generation, and nobody really cares. I mean, you hear people talk about it all the time. There's a YouTuber called Space that has a lot of great videos on the topic, but most people in day-to-day life just don't care outside of the actual people that are suffering. And even the people that suffer the most, the actual Gen Zers, a lot of them don't even really care. They're just apathetic. And you can't blame someone for responding that way. I mean, if you've been living your whole life with the whole world around you getting worse and worse over time, like literally every aspect of life, no matter what metric you look at, everything just getting worse and worse year after year for your entire life, what can you expect of someone growing up like that? Is it really surprising that so many Zoomers take the nihilistic approach? Of course, Gen Z are going to be apathetic about these things. They've grown up with society just collapsing around them while they were powerless to help. And they've been able to watch it all going down from an early age. Because these younger generations, and it started with the Gen Z, even as kids, they aren't clueless to the world around them. On some level, they're actually more informed than previous generations because they're so plugged into social media and YouTube and TikTok and everything. More so than any generation before, Gen Z has been watching the world as it burns. They're literally seeing it all go down in 4K. And I do know a bit firsthand about how that is on a developing mind, because keep in mind, I am a millennial, but I was terminally online from a very early age. I was addicted to forums and internet browsing since I was like 11 years old. So I do know about being exposed like that from an early age, and I think that is one of the reasons I kind of have a case of arrested development. But nowadays it's just standard operating procedure for parents to hand their kids a tablet at the dinner table when they're like 3 years old, and that is something that only Gen Z and the younger generations have gone through. Like, when you think of the world wars or Vietnam, it seems like that could have easily been a traumatizing time to grow up in. Even though all the fighting wasn't actually on US soil, if you were a kid growing up then, you'd probably at least know someone that went off to war, and there's a good chance you know someone personally that died in war. And not to mention, like with the Cold War, there's that looming threat of nuclear war, and that's got to be anxiety inducing. But when you really think about it, kids back then were only experiencing all this through word of mouth, newspapers, television, radio, and what they did see on television, it wasn't targeted toward kids, so it was probably easy for kids to just kind of tune it all out, or they just didn't really care or didn't notice what was going on. But the entertainment and media landscape nowadays, it's designed to capture your attention and feed off of your fear and other primal emotions. You wouldn't think kids would care about stuff like Israel and Palestine or Donald Trump and Joe Biden or whatever, but kids can't avoid this stuff. It's in the algorithm, and sometimes it's mixed in with regular kid stuff like content targeting kids. I mean, it would be easy for a 7-year-old kid just scrolling through Fortnite videos or something to end up watching some Hassan Piker or Destiny video or something, because they don't talk all boring like Anderson Cooper or whoever. Hassan Piker is talking all energetically, using the cool, hip slang and memes and everything, speaking bombastically, passionately, and maybe there's even some gameplay footage to go along with it. And whether or not there's anything true or false about what he's saying, you can see how a little 7-year-old kid with his impressionable mind, how he might be attracted to that type of content. And kids can get radicalized so easily by these things. And even ones that don't get radicalized, all that doom and gloom and just this highly stratified political landscape, that's tough on a kid. Because you can see how it's almost like a kid growing up in this stratified political landscape where everybody's some type of radical, or at least that's the impression you get from looking at public figures online. A kid might naturally feel like they have to pick a side. And they won't consider neutral or just normal as a valid side to pick. Because even just being somewhere in the middle is demonized as some form of radicalism. You know, you see people online talking about quote unquote enlightened centrism, like having beliefs from different schools of thought is a bad thing. And it just seems like Gen Z and the next generation, Gen Alpha or whatever, they're just coming up in the most hateful society the world has ever seen. It's you're either with us or you're against us. And if you don't neatly fit into any specific belief system, which most people naturally don't since human beings are kind of complicated and full of contradictions, if you don't fit in, that's going to cause some internal struggle. You know, that's going to cause anxiety, depression, and who knows what else. It could manifest in dozens of different kinds of mental illness. And to make matters worse, with all these radical political ideologies and stuff that kids are exposed to at these early ages, there's also all this radical ideology surrounding identity, like gender identity, race, and even religion, that all that used to come from a person's parents and real-life community. But with the Gen Z, they were exposed to all these different ideologies at very early ages. You know, your parents probably have some basic idea of your maturity level and how emotionally and mentally ready you are to learn about any given thing at whatever age. But these people making content on the internet, they don't know you. They don't care about you. They don't know if the 13-year-old watching their content, if that kid is ready to learn about something complex that requires nuance and context and careful consideration. They're just dumping their slop out into the social media trough and hoping anybody consumes it. And they might not even believe the stuff they're saying. A lot of these content creators, they know what gets views. They know what converts subscribers and all of that. And it's not good what it is. It's the most radical, most bombastic, most inflammatory drivel that gets the views. And as an adult that came up before all this social media stuff was out there, I probably have a better capacity for sorting through the BS. But you can't expect the average 10-year-old to be able to navigate that landscape with any sense of skepticism. Because even if they are a natural critical thinker, it's hard to sort through it all. Especially now when we have realistic AI and deepfakes. Gen Z just had no chance. And it's probably even worse for the next generation. And with all these mental issues brought on by early exposure to social media and all this radical stratification, it makes it hard for Gen Zers to actually connect with other people and form meaningful relationships, or even just any relationship at all, because everything is just online now. You shop online, you find romantic partners through an app, and quote-unquote socializing is increasingly done online. I mean, even job interviews and a lot of jobs themselves are 100% remote now. And you could work a job 60 hours a week and possibly never actually hear your own coworkers' voices. And I don't think that remote work is bad. It's definitely a good thing for work-life balance or whatever. But just with every part of society that used to be in person, now being online, these younger generations just don't learn how to communicate. They don't learn compromise. They don't learn empathy. Because these are natural things that are basically the natural byproducts of in-person interaction. When you're part of a real-life community, you naturally empathize and compromise because you know you have to in order to be accepted. But now, Gen Z, why would they bother? Compromise is hard. Why do that if you don't have to? You don't need IRL communities. You don't need real-life interaction. You can just find a Discord community or whatever based around your own radical belief system where everyone already agrees with you. And now you have all your socialization needs taken care of, and you don't have to learn anything about how to actually deal with real people and to form real human connections. But really, your socialization needs, they're not taken care of at all. Not really. And I do know firsthand what I'm talking about because I think the fact that I was terminally online and into internet forums at such an early age, that is part of why I am the way that I am. And this was just from me replacing my real life socialization in a small way with these text-only, slow-moving internet forums. And I do think that has had a huge negative impact on my life. So it's hard to even imagine what it's like for Zoomers who grew up on social media, and especially the even younger generation growing up with TikTok and Discord. vBulletin forums were bad enough. But this social media now is like, if old school internet forums were an information highway, social media now is like the Vegas Strip or Dubai or something combined with Disney World. Everything is flashy and colorful. Everything is radical. Everything is quick, straight to the point. But the point isn't even a point. It's just garbage. And another thing is that relationships have been gamified. Of course, there's dating apps like Tinder and all that, but even friend and colleague type relationships are gamified. All these communication platforms like Discord and Slack, which is commonly used in workplaces, they have special roles and achievements you get by posting messages or doing other things, and it's just so gamified. They're turning social interaction into a game. It's not supposed to be like that. We are literally animals. This is not a game. Your social life is not supposed to be hyper competitive like this. And what happens is that all this, especially with the dating apps, it's so competitive, it makes it so that there's a few people that are really good at the game and most people are losers. So the top 20% get all the success, all the results. And when dating is gamified, that means the top 20% of men are getting all the dates. And it's always been like that in most societies throughout history in a sense, but it's just amplified so much by technology. Gen Z really just never stood a chance. And all this is true about the economy too. We're at the point now, social media is essential to finding employment. And this isn't a big deal for most millennials and older generations because they already have a lot of work experience. But the Gen Zers just starting out in their careers, they're forced to play the game. And it is a game. Literally, LinkedIn and Indeed and Glassdoor, all these social media jobs platforms, they have intentionally designed elements to promote the gamification of the job hiring process because they want people addicted to using their platforms. And it's on both ends too. You know, the job seeking process is gamified for job seekers, while at the same time, the job hiring process is gamified for the employers. So if you're in your 20s right now, it's not enough to just get a degree or a certification and just start at the bottom in an entry-level position where you learn the tools of the trade by working as you go. No, you have to maintain an active social media presence. You have to be charming, well-groomed, and presentable. And I don't mean physically. I mean like in your online profiles. Like you could have some kind of vague faux pas on your LinkedIn page and not even realize it for years, and it could be like the equivalent of a mustard stain on your shirt during an interview where people just see you as sloppy because of it and they don't want to hire you. But you might not even notice because it's just some subtle thing about how you phrased one of your job descriptions for a past job or something. And again, this gamification just makes things more stratified. So the top 80% of people with the best online presence who play the game best, they're getting all the good job offers, and everybody else is relegated to customer service and retail or just no job at all. And there's also qualification inflation. You know, you've probably heard it said before that the college degree is the new high school diploma, and there is some truth to that. If 90% of people have a bachelor's degree, then more and more jobs are going to require that, simply because they can. And I do think it's not as difficult as it used to be to get a college degree, Like a person with an IQ of 85 can do all the work and get a college degree in most majors. It's really not much more difficult than high school, but the cost is just outrageous. At the very least, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And that's a lot to ask of someone just to maybe have the chance of starting a low paying wage slave career where they're just treated like another number in the system. And all of these things I'm saying, a lot of this applies to people of all ages because we are all living in this world as it is right now. But for the younger people today, the barrier to entry for employment, relationships, and even just finding accurate information about anything, the barrier to entry is so much greater than it has ever been before. So Gen Z and Gen Alpha are disproportionately impacted by all of this. And on top of that, these younger generations had to grow up with the world like this, or with the world increasingly moving in that more stratified, hyper-competitive direction, and that surely has an impact on a developing child's mind. Technology in virtual society is replacing real-world institutions and real-world community at a rapidly increasing pace. And us humans, we're really just animals. We were not made to live like this. It's over out here for Gen Z, and it's over out here for Gen Alpha, and it's over out here for whoever comes after that. It's really hard to see a silver lining here. But I have heard some people say that Gen Alpha in a lot of ways is actually doing better than Gen Z. Personally, I don't see it, but then again, I don't interact with kids pretty much ever, so maybe that's something I wouldn't see, but it just feels like it's over for these younger generations, and it sucks.